Well, good afternoon. It is Monday, December the 6th. And I always talk about this year flying by. Well, this is the last Monday, the first Monday in the last month. So I'm Eric Knowles, president of the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce. Welcome you to our Monday Connection. And, one thing about business, as we talk about business, one of the hardest things to do or the challenges we have is capital and fundraising. And so today I'm honored and have a pleasure of having TL Williams here, Crowd Wall Street crowd funder. So welcome, TL. There he is.
Hey, what's going
Hey,
on, Mr. Knowles?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I choose not to complain.
I hear you, man. Somebody has it worse, right?
Somebody always have it worse, man.
Yeah. So we got to, like you said, choose not to complain and no complain, but fix whatever it is. Keep on moving. So, serial entrepreneur, startup advisor, uh, early stage fundraising, uh, co-founder of Crowd Wall Street Inc., Crowd Wall Street Rewards, which are two crowdfunding platforms where you and your team help startups gain access to capital and resources. So we know when the question is asked, what are the biggest problems that small businesses have? And normally or usually the biggest one is access to capital.
Correct.
So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, man. So,
And first of all,
start-
tell folks who you are.
okay.
We were just talking before you came on, and as we were saying where you're from, and like you said, Carroll City, uh, formerly known as, but still known as to many of us,
Yep,
Miami Gardens.
definitely.
Tell folks about where'd you attend school?
Yeah, so originally from Carol City. I started off at Carol City, but my mom took me out of Carol City because I was getting in trouble. And so I ended up going to
Ah,
Hialeah, Miami Lakes because Carol
okay,
City was all my friends, cousins, everybody was there. So I wasn't really focused, but I still got Carol City in my blood. So that's the two schools I went to. But after that, I was into corrections, actually working in immigration, as far as my career path. But what happens is, I feel like I hit a plateau in my career, and it's like I was telling my wife, it's like, is that it? Is this all to life? Like just get up, go to work, and bring home a paycheck every 2 weeks? And I just
right,
felt like it was, it was more. But during the process of me actually working my job, I founded a nonprofit called Lighthouse of Arms, which is very active in the Miami Gardens area and Overtown area. I also started my own security school where I was teaching up and coming security guards on getting their certifications and their gun license. And then fast forward, I got into insurance and started doing insurance, and I ran my own office actually in Miami Gardens. I ran my own insurance branch office where I had about 15 agents. And then from there, networking and connecting with people, that's when I really got into the business finance area where I went into business lending. And that's when I had got my aha moment because doing business finance, I met a lot of small business owners that needs help with capital, and unfortunately, they couldn't get approved with banks. Many of them didn't know anything about business credit or anything. So I'm like, there is a need there. And me looking at financial statements and bank statements, I realized there was a niche there that I could probably help, far as help business owners navigate understanding how to not just work in their business but work on their business. So I
right.
did business consulting, helping businesses start, helping with structure, helping them with business credit, understanding finance, for probably well over 7 years. And then I started to embark into the private equity market. And then the private equity market was like open up a whole nother portal. And then when I started researching that pre-pandemic, I realized when it came to private equity, especially venture capital firms, there wasn't that many, black owned venture capital firms in the industry. And understanding that there are a lot of minority founders who are in the startup phase, because there's a difference between startups and small businesses. And so when you're talking about startups and founders who's building these companies to scale or even take it public, it was very difficult for them to raise capital. Hence, where a lot of venture capital firms being, white owned, it wasn't that many black VCs out there. And so that's when I, took the challenge to say, hey, I want to start my own venture capital firm. And met one of our partners, Jamsky French, who's also from Kansas City, but he's currently residing in Los Angeles right now. And me and him connected, and we started putting our heads together, and then that's how we embarked on crowdfunding. And we felt like crowdfunding would be a great gateway to not only help minority founders navigate through fundraising and raising capital, but also provide an opportunity for the community to become investors in these same businesses. And that's how we created Crowd Wall Street.
So explain crowdfunding to our listeners. Obviously there's different ways to get funded. Like, again, when businesses start, they're usually told, friends and family, to help raise capital. So you want to talk about that a little bit and then go into the crowdfunding?
So the best explanation I could use for crowdfunding is our world famous GoFundMe. Many of us are familiar with GoFundMe, where we're raising money for medical expenses, or somebody got into a car accident, or even funeral expenses. And that's a form of crowdfunding. You're raising money from the community, from the crowd, to help, for a particular cause. But back in 2012, Obama passed the Jobs Act, which allows crowdfunding when it comes to business and real estate projects. And what that did is that opened up the gates to what we call retail investors. And so retail investors are what's the average person who's working a 9 to 5 job can have the opportunity to invest in private equity markets, which is startups. So prior to 2012, when you hear about companies like Facebook, Lyft, Uber, Amazon, many times the community, the actual public, are able to invest in these companies once that company go to the stock market. But what we don't realize is before then, they're capital raising, but they're only raising money for what we call accredited investors. These are individuals who are wealthy, who are making, well over $300,000, $200,000 a year, and have over $1 million worth of asset. So that kind of excluded everybody else. So it was a small private individuals that was able to invest in these startups. And so when we think about it, when these companies go public and when we buy shares in these companies, we're cashing out the early investors. So now with 2012 Jobs Act came into place, now it provided opportunities for communities and the average person to participate in the same thing that was cut off from us years ago. So with crowdfunding, you have pretty much two different platforms that we have. So the first one I could talk about is Crowd Wall Street Rewards. I'm talking about Crowd Wall Street Rewards, but that's one of our companies, Crowd Wall Street Rewards. This is a reward-based crowdfunding platform, and that primarily focus on early stage companies, those individuals who have this bright idea and want to develop a new technology, a new app, or come out with a new product, and they want to get their business funded. And unfortunately, sometimes it's hard to go to banks, to get funding for an early stage startup with just an idea. And then sometimes it's hard to get, lenders to loan you a money off an idea that may not work. And so what crowdfunding does is, hey, it provides the opportunity to say, okay, I have this bright idea, I have this product or app that I want to bring to the market. But one of the things that we skip as business owner is getting social proof, making sure we get traction, make sure it's something that the community wants. So the reward base, how it works is if I have this sanitizer and I want to bring it out to the market, and this is something that I customized and I created, I could put this on a reward-based crowdfunding platform and do what's called like a pre-sale. Because what you're doing is I'm targeting my target audience. I'm not going to the banks. I'm not going to third-party lenders because they're not going to help me with marketing. They're not going to help me with all these other things. But if I'm able to raise capital pre-sales through a reward-based crowdfunding platform, then it tells me, number one, there's a market out there for what I'm trying to do. Number two, it shows I have traction. And number three, I have social proof. And the beauty of that is I don't have to do it without taking out any debt. I don't have to give up any equity early in my company. Only thing I'm obligated to do is make sure that I'm able to distribute my products, at the appropriate time once my campaign is over with, to include other stuff. So we have different ways that we can structure rewards where we can incentivize our backers for contributing to these founders campaigns. Now, on the flip
Right.
side of that, we have what's called investment platform. Now, these are more for security purposes, as far as financial security purposes. So these are companies, whether it's small businesses or early stage startups, they can raise money and give out equity, a piece of equity in their company. So they could do it in the form of common shares, they could do it in the form of convertible notes, or they could do it in the form of debt. So what that does is when we talk about small businesses, and we have small businesses that, many of our local communities shop at every day. How about, a company want to expand their business? They want to open up a franchise. And instead of them probably going to a bank to get money, they can actually raise that money from their customers. Now, their customers can have some form of small equity ownership in the same very location and restaurant or whatever business it may be, in the same company they shop in every day. And that does a lot for the community, where now not only we're helping founders raise capital, but it's also teaching the community how to become investors and how they can participate in uh, in these fundraising activities. So those are the
So,
two
question.
main differences.
No. So, a question for you: how does one, as an investor, how do they get a return on that investment?
So on the investment side, from the founder standpoint, the beauty of crowdfunding is when you raise money from a VC or a private equity firm, they kind of control the terms, how much they expect on their return, when they want their return, XYZ. With crowdfunding, the founders get to choose how they're going to pay back that return and when they'll be able to pay back that return. So each campaign, each founder is different because it's modeled based on what the founder terms are. And so on this, one of the things that comes with education when it comes to private equity investing, it's not like, the stock market, or it's not like real estate when you could just flip a house in a couple of weeks or a couple of months get a return. In the private equity space, it's a
Right.
long-term game. So it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
Sometimes companies may not go public, or they may not get acquired by a larger company in the next 5, 7 to 10 years. So based on the terms,
Right.
whether it's they have equity or whether it's debt, sometimes, if it's debt, most of the time these companies already have revenue generating. So they may need money to expand, may need money for equipment. And then, those investors who invest in debt instruments may see a return much quicker than an equity instrument.
Okay. Very interesting. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. I've seen on social media, um, many companies, and there's some platforms out there that promote companies that are starting up and crowdfunding, as you said. What are some of the
Mhm.
platforms that are out there?
So some of the platforms out there, you have Start Engine, you have WeFunder, you have Republic, um, Seed Invest. I think there's over 60 platforms in total in the United States, but I don't believe all of them are active. And
Right.
Crowd Washer would be will be the third black-owned crowdfunding platform
Okay.
in the United States.
So yeah, so I'm familiar with Start Engine as you mentioned it, and so you are doing pretty much what a Start Engine is doing.
Definitely.
Very cool, very cool. So how
Yep.
can we help you if someone wants to learn more about what you're doing? How can they contact you?
Well, they can go to the website and subscribe to our website, www.crowdwallstreet.com. Our platform will be released hopefully by January. You can also check out our other platform, CWSrewards.com. That is actually up and active. You can contact us at support@crowdwallstreet.com. That's support@crowdwallstreet.com. And you can follow us across all social media platforms. Just type in Crowd Wall Street. We'll show up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And we also have a Crowd WallStreet University on Facebook. So we have created a private group with about 800 members, where we're actually educating people on crowdfunding so they can understand how crowdfunding works.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, it's been an education. So I definitely will be following up with you. And I'm sure you'll get a lot of folks to reach out to you. If you want to know more about the chamber, those of you who are watching, you can reach the chamber at www.m-dcc.org, or you can call the chamber at 305-751-8648. Well, TL, this has definitely been an education. Look forward to you. I know we see each other on the Tuesday Zooms, and you're bringing that information. So those of you who are watching also, every Tuesday at 4 o'clock, we have a member Zoom. Members like TL bringing information, educating other members on what it is that they're doing. So it's a member Zoom meetup on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock. So TL, thank you so much. Look forward to continue to engage. So look forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Knowles.
Absolutely.